You're listening to Greetings from Austin. I'm Alisa.
And I'm Jenny.
We're here to share all things lifestyle, real estate, design, and more.
As Austin natives and agents with combined 28 years experience, we're excited to bring you new episodes weekly.
Thanks for joining us today. For today's episode, we have a special guest with us. Kelly Conway with the Conway Insurance Agency, a premier Allstate agency, is going to talk with us about reviewing your home insurance coverage. This has only become more important with the rise of construction costs, and we're super excited to have an expert with us today to explain the ins and outs.
Hey Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today to chat about home insurance. We're happy to have you. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for inviting me to do this. I really appreciate it. So I am Kelly Conway. I am the owner of the Conway Insurance Agency. It's an all-state agency, been in business for 12 years now. Got two locations, one in Austin, right at Spicewood Springs and Mopac, and another location in Round Rock. I have a great team of 6 employees, and just really love what I do. My favorite part of the business is people, and my interactions with people are what make me happy, make me enjoy what I do. And then at a personal level, I've been in Austin 25 years. I've got 2 kiddos, a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, and that's me.
We're busy.
9 already. Wow. Time flies.
Yes. It's going way too fast.
Yes, it does. It really does. So our focus today is on how construction costs are impacting insurance coverage. Can you tell us how often you recommend homeowners review their coverage?
Absolutely. And with all insurance, it's good to do at least an annual review of your policies. Things change. We just did a big remodel in our house, so had to adjust things on our policy. Sometimes even auto insurance, we got to make sure we have the right vehicles insured. I've had that come up before where people bought a car and hadn't reviewed that. So it's important to review it at least once a year. And with, and it may not be necessary, but, at least be in touch with your insurance agent once a year to make sure you're where you need to be and you're not missing any discounts and you've got the right amount of coverage. So.
Mm-hmm.
Will you clarify what is all included in replacement cost?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we are insuring a home, we are insuring the structure itself. And what we're looking at is if there is a total loss, what is the cost to reconstruct the structure itself? So what goes into it is most companies, pretty much every insurance carrier uses a replacement cost tool calculator. And we look at plugging in all the different factors of the house, from the most basic, of course, the square footage, but we're also looking at the exterior wall construction, the roof type, taking into account in the interior, the quality of the kitchen, have there been upgrades, the flooring throughout the house. So really drilling down to the specifics of the home itself will help us get to a more accurate replacement cost.
Great.
In your opinion, what is the main driving factor in the increase in coverage needed that we've seen over the last few years?
Yeah, so a question that I get a lot, people call in and say, oh, my tax value went up, or my neighbor's house just sold for $2 million and I need to increase my insurance. So insurance isn't driven by market value. It's not value of the land, doesn't factor into it. We're looking at just insuring that structure. So and as you can imagine, so yes, market values have gone up, tax appraised values have gone up, but also cost of construction has gone up. And that's the piece that we're talking about with our clients. And the reason for that increase is kind of everything we're experiencing right now: inflation, lack of materials, lack of labor, a hard time getting, there's some statistics out there that after pandemic, we saw some really big changes in the cost of materials themselves. So one statistic was that building materials in general, just in the year 2021, increased by almost 45%. Cost of lumber, I had to like go back and reread this percentage, but from 2020 to now, the cost of lumber has gone up 340%, 340. So
It has sort of come back down. I mean, we just bought a lumber package like, I don't know, a couple months ago, and luckily it had come down. I assume that was the trend. I assume it's still down, but who knows? It's like a stock. It can go up and down.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a commodity, right? In
Yeah.
fact, I was talking to a builder earlier this week, just kind of getting his pulse. He actually builds custom homes, very high-end custom homes, and then he builds like tract homes out in Gerald. So he's got a really good perspective on what the cost of construction is, and really, experiencing the ups and downs in the cost of the materials that go along with it. So yeah, I mean, it's labor shortages, it's material costs going up, hard time getting the actual materials that are needed. So all of those things are factoring into increased construction costs, which is causing us to look at increasing replacement costs on policies.
Definitely. So what if the property owners can't afford the increase in cost that comes with the increase in coverage, and what are their options?
Yeah, so there are some things that you need to look at. So when we are increasing the replacement cost, that is also going to increase the deductible. Typically here in Texas, the deductible is 1% of the replacement cost. So if you've got a home insured at $100,000, if you have a claim, your out of pocket is $1,000. So as we increase that replacement cost, say we now go to $150,000 in coverage, that's going to increase the deductible to $1,500. So have to keep that part in mind, that we got not just think about premium now, but if we have a claim in the future, what will be the out of pocket? Now, that being said, the deductible is the biggest cost driver on the premium. So one way that we do look at it is, maybe you can afford to go to a 2% deductible, or, we can also offer a flat $5,000 or $10,000 deductible. And when I'm talking to clients about that, we're talking about if you had damage to your property, when are you going to file a claim? And it's typically not going to be for things that are $5,000 or less, because you don't want to have a lot of claims on your policy. You don't want your premium to go up because of that. So, smaller claims, smaller types of damages are kind of just chalked up to the joys of homeownership, right? Like we all have to take care and maintain the property, and then use the insurance policy for those more catastrophic losses. So if we have, with the freeze we had 2 years ago or 1 year ago, had these big water losses that happen when pipes burst. So yes, that's a catastrophic loss. We definitely are using insurance for that. But, we had a dishwasher leak and had to replace some flooring, and a small claim like that, we're not going to file a claim. So deductible is really where you can find the biggest savings as we're looking at having to increase the coverage on the policy.
Gotcha.
So we already kind of touched on this a little bit, but construction costs really vary. How do you recommend calculating those costs?
Yeah, so the replacement cost tool that is out there is supposed to be very specific to cost of materials and labors per zip code. I don't think, though, that it has been able to keep up with the increased cost of materials and labor. I think there's some lag time, of course, there. And, we're thinking about future losses and how much those are going to cost. So on top of, so I think the replacement cost calculator tool is a great place to start. And then I do, step more to talk to builders in the area. So that builder I mentioned earlier, there's a huge difference in construction quality and type, and cost of labor when we're looking in Central Austin versus when you're looking, farther outside of Austin, like Temple or Gerald area. So I use the replacement cost tool as a rule of thumb. And then from there, based on other research that I have, I'm looking at where's the home located, what's the quality of construction, and really looking at a price per square foot on where we should be.
Mm-hmm. And so what's a range of a price per square foot that you guys have been using lately?
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, we were at like 120 for kind of a basic, what we would call a basic kitchen, basic bathrooms. we were looking at 125 to 150 a square foot. Now for that same quality house, I feel more comfortable being at 175 to 200 a square foot. The higher end homes are going for, building for 500 a square foot. I mean, it can be drastically different. So really having a pulse on what the market looks like as far as the types of homes in the different areas and the quality of construction of those homes, and also the cost of labor because hiring labor here in Central Texas or Central Austin for construction is more expensive than hiring it outside of the city. So all of that factors into it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So as we navigate the shifting market, how does this affect home insurance, and what should property owners keep in mind?
Just to make sure you're keeping on it, and understanding, how the coverage works, what
Mm-hmm.
your deductibles would be like, and just making sure that you have the right amount of coverage. I talked to a client today that she had a very low premium, which she loved, but she had a really high deductible. And so we kind of backed into, this, your out of pocket is going to be close to $10,000 for a claim, which means your premium's really low, but can you afford that 10,000? Do you want to? And so just making sure you're having the right conversations to understand what your annual premium is versus what your deductible would be if there's a claim, making sure you can afford both, and then still looking at making sure you're insured properly for that replacement cost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
So, how can property owners feel assured that they're working with the right insurance agent or company?
Yeah, a trust factor to start. I think you have to feel like it's a person that you trust to help you with your biggest asset usually that you have is your home. So trust is important. Having reviews, we reach out once a year to see if the client wants to do a review or not, so we're very proactive in making sure that we're having those conversations. So of course, online reviews and, looking for those 5-star ratings and talking to friends and family and see who they're using. Every carrier, I am an Allstate agent, so I have to price my policies as Allstate has them agreed upon with the Texas Department of Insurance. So every carrier rates things differently. So, finding a company that is competitively priced, offering you the right coverage, and then of course an agent that you'd be comfortable working with, and not just doing reviews, but also in a claim situation. So I am available, and I've got a dedicated claims person in my office to help people navigate the claims process, because that can be challenging and overwhelming when you've got a claim on your home.
Yeah, it's
Definitely.
very stressful.
Yes.
My last one was a roof claim, and it wasn't very fun. I had to go back so many times, and I changed insurance companies after that.
Yeah, and it's hard, and I've had, but some people don't understand that. Yeah, the first decision may not be the final decision when it comes to a claim, and so I help my clients all the time with, yes, we're going to get another roofer out there, we're going to do a reinspection, and we're really going to push to make sure that we should be paying the claim or not. I mean, we've got to do the research to we shouldn't. If we just pay out every claim, of course, we would go broke, and insurance rates would keep going up. So, it's making sure we're paying the right claims, but, having an agent to hold your hand through the process, I think makes a big difference.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree with that. So a little bit more about my claim. I did a claim before everything blew up in the market, before we started seeing costs increase for things. So that was part of the struggle, because I didn't do the work right away. And then the number that they gave me was no longer accurate at all. No. So by the time I actually did the work, the roof costs went up by $4,000.
Wow.
Ouch.
Yeah. So then I had to go back, and they did cover it and do a good job. But, it was stressful. And it was actually a
Yeah, and
roofer
it's
that
just
told me I could even do that. My insurance agent didn't communicate
exactly,
that with
yeah,
me.
and so that's what people don't realize, and they
Yeah.
don't know that they have some options, and they can have people, or an agent should be able to help them get through
Yeah.
that process, because it's
The most
I don't
important
want my
part.
clients to, yeah, I don't want my clients to be filing claims all the time, which means they don't know what the claims experience should be like. So that's where I can step in and help.
Yeah. I love to hear that, especially after that experience.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I remember. I think I got in a wreck, and you were very calm. You might have been one of my first phone calls.
Yes,
So you probably
which is
talk to some pretty stressed out people very often.
yes. And kind of like you guys, like I find myself being a therapist a
Yeah.
lot and kind of walking people back off that ledge, and we'll get through this together. And so, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned different carriers earlier. Can you go into a little bit more detail on the different coverages you might see per carrier?
Absolutely. So, in homeowners is where you'll see sometimes drastic differences between carriers. So, auto insurance is cut and dry. You have your policy limits, you have your deductibles, you either have towing or roadside or rental, or you don't, and that's it. But when we look at homeowners policies, there's things like mold testing or remediation, water sewer backup, water slab damage. So there's coverages that as a layperson, you might not know to even look for when you're looking at homeowners insurance. I mean, usually people are uh, looking at two things: the replacement cost and the premium. And so, premium, of course, is a driver. You have to be able to afford it, but you want to make sure that you are getting your money's worth. So, there's to kind of take it a step further, when I'm talking with clients, I've got a spreadsheet that I do that I have all of the carriers' different types of coverages, whether they have the mold testing or remediation, or if it has to be added as an endorsement. So, and I will, we'll go through line item by line item and say, look, these are the differences in the coverages. These could be added to either policy, and just helping people understand what the different coverages do. There are some policies, this wouldn't be with a lot of the major carriers, but when we had those wildfires in Bastrop years ago, there were policies out there that had exclusions for wildfires. And so, it's not just understanding the coverages, but also understanding exclusions that might be on the policy. Some policies, when we had snowpocalypse, they limited water damage coverage. And so, there was a max, and sometimes a really low max, like 5,000 or 10,000. And some of those water damage claims that we had were up to $500,000. So yeah, knowing the different exclusions that could be on the policy is really important too. But yeah, I mean, there are some basics between every policy. You're going to have your replacement cost. You're going to have coverage for other structures. That's automatically built into the policy. Usually it's 10% of whatever your replacement cost is. That's covering, if you don't have another structure, but it would cover fence line, but it would also cover outdoor kitchen and some pool damage. So that's automatically included on all policies. You'll have liability coverage. So if somebody is injured while they're on your property, you'll have coverage for that. And then your stuff, your personal property. So if you took your house and flipped it upside down, everything that fell out of it would fall under your personal property. And usually that's listed at 65% of whatever your dwelling coverage is, but that can be increased or decreased too. And then, so those are the basic coverages that are going to come with every policy. But then additional living expenses. So if your home is being repaired, you need a place to live, that coverage is automatically on there, but a lot of times it's put on at a very low limit unless you increase it, do an endorsement to increase it. So that's where we get into all the things that can be different on each policy, that the living expenses, the water backup. And a lot of companies do have the ability to add these coverages on, but if the agent's not talking about it or you don't know about it, how would you know to even ask what's missing?
You'd have to read, every page of that thick packet,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
No one does. Barely anyone does, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's very few. I've had a few. I've probably just like a few in the last 12 years, but yeah, but that's the thing about the policies is they here's what we cover, and then here's what we exclude, and then sometimes they'll add in coverages back after they've excluded them. So it gets complicated. So having someone that can read that language for you and help interpret it, I think is important, because people, it can be overwhelming. I mean, it's if you're not doing it every day, it's hard. And it's frustrating to people, I think, because we've been paying premiums all these years, and to not really understand it is it doesn't feel good. So having someone there to be able to explain, here's the differences and here's what you should be looking for, and really just making sure you understand what you're paying for, and it's not always all about premium. It's about having the right coverage.
Yeah, I can't imagine the wildfire and not having that coverage. That would be really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there in insurance, that's another thing to talk about right now is rates are going up. I mean, we just talked about construction rates going up, and all of that, it trickles down into insurance because now claims are bigger. And so, just understanding that you have the right coverage and that you've got a good premium is important, but do be aware that all of this is factoring back into what the premium costs are going to be, because now payouts are higher.
Yeah. Everything's more expensive.
Yes, it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. All at once.
I had some friends that their house burned down maybe a year ago now, but it was a vacation home, but they happened to be there, and it was a fire pit or something. People were in the house. Thank God they got out. But and their replacement, what they had it insured for, was not anything near what it would cost to rebuild. So I don't know I haven't talked to them in a while. I don't know, but it was a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a client who, talk about 2020 being a bad year. Her home caught on fire on January 2nd. And then right before pandemic and everything, it was hard. And those are one of the harder claims, obviously, to go through. But one thing I think that could be a takeaway on this too, when you get a client, yes, we have the coverage for the replacement costs, but the personal property, there has to be accounting for what's in the house. And so, obviously we know a living room is going to have a couch, but if you've got more specialized items in the house, then definitely worth talking about if those should be scheduled or not. And then I tell people, do a quick inventory. Just take a video on your phone of each room, because if there is a total loss, you're not going to remember every single thing that you had. So I think it's a good practice just to take some time and have a little video inventory of what you've got within your house. So if there is a loss, then
so how does that work? Do you have to prove that you had all of these things?
Not all of it, but once you get into more high value items, then yeah, the more documentation you have, the better. But even because you don't want to have more work or responsibility to do when you're already going through a huge claim like losing a home. But yeah, there is there's accounting for especially those more higher end items. So I mean, there's tools to know, like a standard living room would have this, and so
if you had replacement cost on your belongings, say for $100,000, would you be able to get just that $100,000, or do you have to turn in?
Yeah, it won't pay out as a lump sum. So it is replacement cost coverage, but a lot of times, like with the roof claim you talked about, usually it's paid out on a depreciated value first. And as you're replacing things, then a replacement cost is, you get that difference between the depreciated and the replacement cost.
Yeah. So another thing, a fun thing about my insurance at the time was that it was only a depreciated cost.
That's a good segue to talk about too.
Yep. That was a huge learning thing for me as a real estate agent. Like, I'm not an insurance agent, but I felt like I should have known. But really, it was what you were talking about earlier. I did not have the right insurance agent there for me because it's not my area of expertise. And I needed someone to say, here's a big difference in this policy that you really should consider, because I wasn't prepared to I lost out on half of the cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That can be, some policies even do that on the structure, usually not on the structure, but if it's an older structure, sometimes they will only write it for actual cash value. But the roofs is where you can see it. And then personal property, some policies just come with actual cash value. You can endorse it to make it replacement cost, but yeah, that's a big item to look at too, making sure you have replacement costs and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
And not depreciated cost.
Yeah. So they just paid out part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I learned a lot.
And you don't want to have to learn that way, right?
No, the hard way. Yeah.
No. Kind of the point of this whole podcast, like,
Yeah,
learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
No, I shouldn't say that. I should say learn from the experts, because that's who we're talking to.
Yeah.
We don't have that many mistakes.
That claims experience too. Like I've experienced a lot and seen a lot of different things, and can help people understand if they have questions about how a claim would work. Just making sure. And some people don't even understand like how the deductible works and how that all factors in. So, I mean, even just from the most basic level, that one thing that I've always done from the beginning is taking the time to educate the client, and a lot of times too, even if our premium was more, I'd still earn the business because I created that relationship and I helped them understand what they were buying and what they've been paying for all these years, and kind of building that trust, and just taking the time to talk to them.
Yeah. Well, I was telling Alisa the story of how I went out looking for a new insurance agent and why. And I don't remember how I found you. Was that?
I don't remember either. I keep track of it, so I can go look and tell you.
Oh, okay. But I was telling her I had this house I was remodeling, and I was shopping for insurance, and the people I was with, I guess first off, I had learned from some friends that they did not have the right policy on a house they were remodeling, and I think it burned down, and they lost everything. And I mean, years later, it messed up really a lot of their future endeavors because of this situation. And so I was remodeling a house, and she was just going to put a normal policy on it, and I reminded her, hey, it's vacant. She goes, oh, well, put a chair in there to make it look not vacant. And I said, what? So if it were to burn down, like, I'm the one that's going to get in trouble. I'm the one that's going to have to pay for bad advice. And so I needed someone that was more detailed and clear and giving me accurate information. And
yeah, so I went out. Want to be in a spot where a claim is denied because it wasn't insured.
Yeah,
properly.
I just felt like she putting me in a bad position, and I needed to find someone new. And so I went and found you, and you've done some very unique stuff for me. I really appreciate all your hard work, and just because I, in my construction and remodeling and just all the different.
That's another thing to hit on too, because people are doing a lot of remodeling in their homes or have been recently. So talk to your agent if you're doing that, because you might need some extra coverage, either a builder's risk coverage, or sometimes you can do an endorsement. And if it's going to be vacant, that's another thing to think about too, because there are clauses in policies that will remove coverages if a property is vacant for more than 60 days.
That's such a good tip there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Well, last but not least, where can listeners find you online or contact you if they need insurance help?
Yeah, I'd love that. Thank you. So my office number is the easiest to reach. It actually rings up in both Austin and Round Rock, so you can find us wherever is more convenient for you. But phone number is 512-345-0005. I'll throw out my email. It's easy. It's kellyconway@allstate.com. And you can find the Conway Insurance Agency. If you search Allstate and the Conway Insurance Agency, you'll be able to find us really easily. But yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'd love to help others out there really understand what they've got and make sure they've got the right coverage.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we're also going to put your contact info in the show notes so that everybody has it. And we really appreciate your time today. Yay. And
absolutely
all the super helpful information.
Yeah, I think this is great. Thank you so much. I love educating and getting out there and helping people.